contract with the U.S. military. Costco sales and membership rose in recent months, though it is predicting a mixed summer quarter. Costco shares are narrowly higher. Gap shares and American Eagle both down about 15% after reporting a disappointing quarter. It may be easier to get diagnosis or treatment for your kids. United Health Group says it plans to stop requiring prior approvals for many pediatric procedures, tests, and services by the end of the year. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Ginny Coselda. Invested in you.
Most investments today feel like second jobs. Real estate, you're a landlord. Stocks, you're a day trader. Crypto, you're a full-time researcher. You've got a life to live. Your investment should help you live it. That's why more Americans are choosing gold. Noble Gold has helped thousands protect their future with real physical gold. Visit NobleGoldInvestments.com to get your free wealth protection kit. That's NobleGoldInvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Okay, we're back. Your News Talk America and the Meineke Car Care Studios, Car Care Done Right. I'm with Nick Cook, and we're continuing our conversation into zero-point energy, its ramifications, stepping into the world of unidentified aerial, or whatever you want to call it, phenomena, UFOs, aliens, general officers who speak out of term and will tell you about some of the physics that are in our world today. And then we've got some generals that seem to be disappearing, grabbing their car keys and their weapon and leaving and then running for the hills. I think these are the types of things that are moving around when we're about to learn about something really giant. Or like Tesla, he just gets the volume turned down on him and he goes away. So Nick, welcome back. Help us sort out on the UFO side. What's real? What's not real? What should we look for? What should we look for when we're being duped?
Well, anyone, foolish enough like myself to enter this space, particularly from a sort of, the credentialed reporter's background that I had, should be prepared for, as we said earlier in the show, a gale of misinformation and disinformation coming their way. I enjoy that kind of thing, though. It sort of lights up the quasi-intelligence analysts side of my brain to the degree that, what I've done with this, Blaine, is this whole phenomenon is try and look at it from 360 degrees, because actually if you rely on any one source of information, and I do see that a lot out there, some whistleblower will step forward and people will put a great deal of attention and focus on what that one person is saying about UFOs or UAP. That has happened in the past. We have a much more structured process, as you and I'm sure many of your viewers will know, now that Congress has got its teeth into the whole UAP issue. So instead of people like me grilling, whistleblowers and sources in smoky pubs and back rooms, we've now got members of Congress doing that on camera, literally live. And I don't think we should doubt that there is an issue here. There is a huge issue. Having looked at it from 360 degrees and not relied on any one source for the picture that I'm trying to build up, kind of like an intelligence picture, I am satisfied that there is a cover-up, that we are dealing with a real phenomenon. What that phenomenon is, I think, is open to question. I'm not sure that anyone knows, because of its complexity, what it truly is. But we know that there have been official ODNI-backed reports that have come out that have said we've got stuff, you guys have stuff in your skies. We all have stuff in our skies that we cannot account for. And we have to do a lot of due diligence to try and unpick what is just misperceptions, classified platforms, and then from what could be possibly genuine anomalies in the skies. Right. But it's the makeup of those anomalies that we really need to get serious about. Because is this something that is strictly physical, or is it something that speaks to uncertainties about how we understand our reality? And I think we are entering that phase, or about to enter that phase of the discussion. Because if UFOs can exist in our skies, then we need to know an awful lot more about the physical makeup of our reality space that can support these anomalies. So it's going to be a really, really interesting time. And I think it's going to light up even more post whenever it is, June the 10th, 12th.
Yeah, the 12th. You're going to see it first. The movie's going to be with you guys first in the UK.
So I see. So I'll report back.
Maybe you'll be in a bunker someplace watching that movie. Are you hopeful about any of that on the movie, that's going to move the football in the right direction?
We shouldn't dress up the fact this is fiction. What Spielberg's come up with is fiction. But he has been, in the past few days, he's released these trailers in which he speaks to his conviction that there is a lot of truth in what he's displaying in Disclosure Day, the movie. Having said that, what Spielberg has an uncanny capacity to do is light up the public imagination. Right. The last time he came up with a bunch of UFO movies, which was Close Encounters and E.T., sightings of UFOs went up exponentially because he had that capacity to get the UFO front and center into people's minds. And of course, that then, produced a lot of additional reporting. But I think what we need to be even more mindful of here when his film comes out is what actually the US administration is going to, will be its impact on the administration. Because Donald Trump seems to have a bit of a love affair going on with the UFO and UAP issue. And if he sees, this is my opinion, but if he sees that it's going to play well to audiences, who knows what he's capable of saying post the release of Disclosure Day.
You're absolutely correct. Well, President Trump has another adversary that he's taken on here in terms of what I would call the frontline armies of the globalists. This is your intelligence communities that are, they pat us on the head as good little citizens. We're not to know. And I've even heard intelligence officials at one point make statements to say about the UAP issue that the president doesn't have a need to know, which is really quite astonishing when you say that you're led by officials that you elected. But I do see different signals around that you can't dispute because they're factual. You could measure it between 13 and 23 very prominent scientists who have worked on either zero-point energy or UAPs associated with it. You got a major general who had a phone call and split, gone, nowhere to be found. You've got a DNI who is arguably the champion in this administration for truth and what the heck is going on with not just UAPs, but everything about deep state stuff. She's out. These are symptoms of something major that is going on around us. Tim Burchett, one of our congressmen, very popular guy from Tennessee. I would say he's one of the last of the honest politicians out there. He said, look, I'm read into a lot of this stuff, and I can just tell you, if you saw it, it would blow your mind. But now we get back to the economics of this piece. If anything is linked to the understanding of these sciences, the quantum plane, where these things come from, particles that are virtual that can flash in, flash out, well, aren't we just going to be seriously ticked off as a public if there were resources that were there for us the entire time and they were denied to us, and the millions that we've lost? Over 140 million dead in the last 200 years to warfare. If the competition for roots and resources wasn't really necessary, what do you think?
Well, I think you've touched on many issues there of great concern.
Good at that.
Well, good. And, I hope this will signify your continuation as a radio host, because we need discussion like this. The first one being, what do presidents actually know? I mean, one of the things that struck me when I first started out as a reporter for Jane's Defense Weekly, and particularly when I was reporting on Pentagon matters, was just how compartmentalized information was. And you guys were so much more open with your information than they were my side of the pond when I was trying to get stuff out of the UK Ministry of Defence. But there is a very compartmentalized structure around secrecy in the States, which I think serves you guys very well in keeping secrets. We don't have that same system set up in the same way here. There's blanket secrecy, which His Majesty will make people sign official secrets acts, and that blanket prevents them from discussing a great deal of things. In the States, it's much more compartmentalized. So you can know about one program, but not know about elements of another. That's the so-called special access system, as you know. But in addition to what politicians are cleared into and what they aren't, we have, those compounding issues of a technology arms race that's going on here. And I was always incredibly impressed when I came over your side of the pond at what you Americans could do with imagination and money. That I didn't see that reflected to the same degree over here in the UK or in Europe. But the combination of deep pockets and extraordinary imagination. I mean, I spend a great deal of time, thankfully, at the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works in Palmdale, California, being briefed on programs there. And if you think for a second that what I'm seeing or what I was seeing in the Skunk Works was just a fraction of the technology breakthrough that we are discussing here about UAP, the capacity for, as we've said, infinite amounts possibly of new forms of breakthrough energy, propulsion, stealth coatings, a raft of new technologies that are promised in the whole UAP dimension. And if vehicles, as we are told, have crashed on US soil and elsewhere, then we are unquestionably in a technology race. The great powers are in a technology race to try and pick apart these secrets and exploit them for military and economic gain. So all of that, I think, threatens or promises to break on us soon like a flood. I think that part is unstoppable.
I think I see a narrative build listening to you. I think I see a rollout plan. I want to bounce it off of you when we get back from the break. But when you start to take look at the deluge of technologies that this would support and bring to light, if you don't want to have a bunch of angry villagers who say, why did we go through the last 2 centuries of killing each other all this time? You're going to need a convenient story to be able to tell the world, what had happened was. And what we'll do when we get back from the break is I want to dissect some of that with you. And then I want to bounce an idea of interstellar travel off of you and compare it to the nonsense that we're fed in the press. We'll be right back on Your News Talk America at the Meineke Car Care Studios in just a minute.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Bright sunshine expected today with daytime highs approaching 77. Northwest winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Lows dip down to about 61. Tonight, clear skies. Mainly sunny tomorrow. Daytime highs approaching 73. Lots of sunshine and dry. Sunday, clouds on the increase by Monday. Low 70s Sunday, upper 70s by Monday. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center, inland. Currently 70.
The Talk of Delmarva Radio Flea Market, Saturday morning at 10 on The Talk of Delmarva. You're listening to WGMD.
Jewelry and Coin Company, located on Route 16 in Milton, is your one-stop shop to buy, sell, and trade anything gold or silver. That's right, jewelry, coins, bullion, silverware, tea sets, even broken scrap and dental gold. So put a little cash in your pocket today by stopping by Admiral Jewelers on Route 16 in Milton.
Open Tuesday through Saturday at 307 Broadkill Road in Milton. That's Admiral Jewelers.
This isn't just a backyard, it's where everything comes together. Hi, I'm Mark Fry of Chagrin Home Comfort Products. For homeowners who expect more, it starts with the right pieces. Built-in grills, fire features, pizza ovens designed to perform and impress. At Chagrin, we carry premium brands like Napoleon, Twin Eagles, XO, Alpha, and now American-made grills. Chagrin Home Comfort Products, where outdoor living begins. Give us a call at 302-644-7700 or stop in the Midway Shopping Center in Rehoboth.
Try before you buy. Hi, I'm Chris Adams of Mattress Peddlers in Lewis, your local family-owned Sturta mattress store. Visit our showroom to try out the best bed for you. Your decision on a mattress today ensures comfort for years to come. Feel the difference and decide. We have memory foam, hybrids, and adjustable bases. Take the time to stop by Mattress Peddlers in Lewis, open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 4 on Route 24 in Peddlers Village.
The Atlantic Hotel in historic Berlin is open every day all year. Great bar, excellent lunch and dinner menus in the cafe, and a special events ballroom. Maryland seafood, steaks, or one of Chef Leo's creations will satisfy your highest expectations. Atlantic Hotel Berlin.
A Delmarva original and one of the country's most successfully owned independent radio stations, providing news, talk, and sports to the peninsula for over 40 years. 92.7 and 98.5 WGND.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio.
Wow.
It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Okay, you're back with your News Talk America, the Meineke Car Care Done Right Studios. I am with Nick Cook, and I know that you want this segment to be 4 hours longer because that's how great this conversation is. But Nick, I want to pick it right back up with you on this narrative build. Wouldn't it be very convenient if they can't hold back the science anymore? If they can't hold back the fact that zero-point energy is not only real, but it can give us things in humanity that we never even dreamed about. Wouldn't they need a convenient little narrative so that they could push away the idea that they've been sitting on this for 200 years and letting the industrialists steal everything that's not nailed down? And wouldn't that look a lot like, oh, I don't know, aliens came and they gave us this really cool science and now we've got a new way of living? What do you think?
Well, I think, as you say, Blaine, narratives are just, they are a tool of war. If you come up with a good narrative, you can literally shape the way the war goes. And not that I'm trying to imply that, we're in a war over this technology internally. The breakthroughs here are, as we've been discussing, so significant that they do merit these cover-ups, and it's going to, when the lid comes off, it's going to be very embarrassing for a lot of people because of the suppression of the evidence, and people, I think, are going to get angry, as you suggest, when they hear that there are forms of breakthrough technology which have been suppressed over the years, whether that's, in the energy plane, whether it's in the medical sphere, there is a great deal of tech that is suppressed. And I don't like that word suppressed because it denotes sort of conspiracy, which I'm actually, quite averse to in terms of conspiracy theories. But we can unquestionably point to the fact that a lot of technology has been deliberately sidelined to maintain, I suppose you could say, a kind of power elite who are in control in a lot of different spheres of life, from industry through to finance and into government.
If there's going to be that kind of freedom, if I'm not worried about energy, if I'm got medical technologies available to me that really that were never available before, and you were part of this power elite, and you were one of the ones that had the ability to control behavior on the planet and how things were done and whether wars happened and whether they didn't happen and what politics happened. If you were in that happenstance and you knew all this deluge of technology was coming through, and this is just speculation between two guys who study this stuff, wouldn't you want AI systems and throwing cameras on every single light pole and having things that can surveil you and try to figure out what it is you're going to do next? Because if you had all these tools, wouldn't those who were holding the strings of power not want to let those strings of power go away? And wouldn't they be working their butts off to develop technologies to keep us on the farm in some other way if we were going to take a look at all this stuff?
Well, I think a lot of that's true, yeah. But I think there's another dynamic as well, which is the world is in such a state of turmoil right now that,
Yes.
And we have that turmoil going on in all planes. We have, geopolitics, which are totally out of whack. Our politics are out of whack. No one knows who to vote for anymore. We have a rampant, as you were saying, technology, runaway technology in the form of artificial intelligence, and we have other issues beside, like famine and climate that's doing squirrely things. All of this stuff is converging on us, and it's creating a sort of instability in what I would call the reality plane. It seems hard to credit, but as I was saying earlier, if strange stuff is happening in the energy space and in the airspace above us, in the form of the appearance of UFOs and UAP, we have to study the reality, the physical reality that gives rise to these things. Because these anomalies are officially discredited by science as not existing, but yet patently so many people are seeing them and reporting on them. And, even across, especially in the military now, we've got those whistleblowers coming forward to Congress. It's impossible to ignore. So all of this is shaking up the reality space. And so the wave that's coming the other way, which gives some hope, I think. It says we've got a bunch of world problems that we have not been able to solve for a very long time. But maybe, just maybe, we're approaching the cusp of some new era where a lot of new science and new knowledge is going to come on board, new tech, which is going to help solve problems that have been shown to be or thought to be intractable in the past. And that gives me actually a bit of hope. So we've talked a lot about conspiracies, but I actually am quite hopeful that a lot of this stuff that we've been talking about is going to lead to breakthroughs that are going to be embraced.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. If you want to get away from the conspiracies and the nefariousness of all of this, then what we have to do as peoples is we have to share the information amongst ourselves. We have to blast through every single possible channel we've got going for us: podcasts, bulletin boards, smoke signals, Morse code, whatever the hell it's going to be. But we all have to be talking to each other. We have to challenge each other's thinking. I was reminded of a UFOologist, pretty prominent one that I was talking to back in September. And I asked him, or actually it was November, and it was about this 3-eye atlas is coming, and it's dancing across the solar system, and it's on its way here. It'll brush by Earth twice between November. It's 3 times the size of Manhattan. It's a monster. But that's not how something like that would come to us. if there's going to be a craft that's going to come here, any physicist worth their salt would say no, it's going to be interdimensional travel, and a ship like that would just flash in because they're in a different dimensional plane, and you would have to get your arms around that. But Americans watching mainstream news, or Brits watching mainstream news, don't tell me about a quantum plane. I don't understand flashing in, flashing out. But if you say, we detected this on the telescope and it's slowly moving and we don't think it's an asteroid, it's that type of crap that I think is going to help us all go, I think they're covering something up. I think there's something else out there. And so I'm hopeful that on this Disclosure Day stuff coming out, that people actually start to get a little bit more aggressive about the knowledge and saying, I think there's more to this stuff. What is this quantum physics stuff that you're not telling me all about? Let's get curious. What do you think about how we're going to get at this as a people? Because the governments are certainly not going to help us.
Well, it's again, we've sort of come back to the first part of the conversation where we were saying that, we can't accept these official narratives anymore. We actually got to a point where we've got to start crafting our own narratives. We have the access now to information. We've got, as you said, 1,000,000,001 podcasts we can get our information from. We can go online. We can get it from AI. I think it's time for us all to become our own intelligence analysts. We've got the tools to do it.
Right.
Don't accept your truth, whatever that is, from any one source. Go out and find truth that actually resonates within you. Become your own intelligence analyst and specialist, because I think that's the era we're in. We're bombarded with disinformation. We're bombarded with fake news. It's really hard to pick apart what's true and what's fake. We've got to go out and do the due diligence ourselves. And actually, that's not as bad as it sounds. It gets pretty interesting if you start becoming your own intelligence analyst.
Yeah, it really does. There's one guy in the UK that I listen to all the time. He might even be friends with you because you guys are very similar. Mark Atwood, who used to be a Royal Air Force pilot and started questioning narratives all by himself. Got his own podcast called Mark's Cosmic Adventures. But he talks a lot about energy management, collective consciousness, the quantum plane. And again, to your point, it's time to cast away these aspersions that this is all woo-woo stuff. No, it's not woo-woo stuff. And that is what the intelligence services wanted you to believe. But the tools that are available today, the open source intelligence tools that are available today, and then you don't have to violate your faith or belief systems. There's a book called The Physics of God by Joseph Siebel. And it's an amazing book because it doesn't separate the two. There's the merge. And it's no, look, if you want to access the universe, it's totally fine. You're not being blasphemous. Actually, this is part of creation, and you're meant to live in it and experience it. I'll give you the final word before we have to go, but I want 3 more hours of this show to talk to you. And you will be on a future edition of Dangerous Intellectuals. I wanted everybody to know that.
Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed the conversation. We could, I dive into that whole rabbit hole of, the whole religious question. I agree with you. None of this, we are in this incredibly consequential time, but it does not have to negate people's belief, in whatever religion they have. It just is that there is a science, as you say, it's kind of like a science of God that underpins that. I don't think that detracts from the wonder and majesty of God. Full stop.
Oh my gosh, here comes the music. No, Nick, come see me on Dangerous Intellectuals, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Oh gosh. Okay, Your News Talk America. We're going to meet Nick's friend Pippa Malmgren in just a minute.
The official talk radio station of the White Marlin Open, WGMD Rehoboth Beach, Ocean City, and WUSX Seaford Salisbury. News, talk, and sports.
A legal setback for the new Trump Legal Fund.
I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News, and it came this morning.
A temporary order from a federal judge in Virginia blocks any payments from a nearly $1.8 billion Justice Department compensation fund. The fund was set up to pay out settlements to individuals accusing the Biden administration of investigating or prosecuting them for political purposes. Its creation came about from a separate settlement to end the lawsuit by President Trump and members of his family against the IRS.
That's Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House. Some Republicans joined Democrats critical of the fund. The judge has set a June 12th hearing to consider extending the block. Now, the president just posted on Truth Social. He's meeting now in the Situation Room to make a final determination on whether to agree to extend the ceasefire with Iran another 60 days. The president wrote that Iran must agree to never have a nuclear weapon. The Hormuz Strait must be immediately open. No tolls for unrestricted shipping traffic in both directions. Former Attorney General Pam Bondi's at the Capitol, answering questions in the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation, but not under oath and not in public.
We want to get the truth to the American people. We want to try to provide justice for the survivors.
That's Republican House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer. Democrats have accused the Trump administration of not releasing all the Epstein files like Congress demanded. Death and destruction on a highway early this morning.
It happened at around 2:35 a.m. on I-95 South in Stafford County in northern Virginia. State police say a charter bus failed to slow down for traffic ahead of a work zone and hit 6 vehicles, killing 5 people among the occupants. They say 34 people are hospitalized, 3 with critical injuries. The crash is still being investigated with criminal charges pending.
Fox's Chris Foster. Blue Origin vowing to rebuild after last night's massive explosion on a Cape Canaveral launch pad in Florida while testing a rocket. Before launch next week, nobody was hurt. America's listening to Fox News.
Ever been in a bad relationship? You know the kind, it just wears you down. You settle in, even though deep down you know this isn't how it's supposed to be. That's what daily aches and pains can feel like. You stop expecting to feel good. You start thinking, maybe this is just life now. But it doesn't have to be. With Relief Factor, you can break up with pain, just like Anthony did. As he writes in, I was dealing with debilitating pain and fatigue. I've been taking Relief Factor for about 2 months, and now I'm back to running my business, fishing, gardening, doing the things that really matter to me. Relief Factor is 100% drug-free, and it targets the inflammation that causes pain, so you can move better, feel better, and actually enjoy life again. Try the 3-week quick start for just $19.95. Go to ReliefFactor.com or call 800-4-RELIEF. That's 800-4-RELIEF. Break up with pain and get back to what matters.
Delmarva's home for local news, 92.7 and 98.5 WGNT, the talk of Delmarva.
The news is brought to you by Wings to Go Long Neck. Open every day at 11 a.m. Order on DoorDash or call 302-947-9444.
A man from Millsboro is behind bars after a home invasion earlier this month that targeted an elderly woman in Georgetown. State police have arrested Robert Barry in connection with the armed robbery attempt on Lawson Road. According to investigators, the incident unfolded the morning of May 15th. Police say the 83-year-old woman opened her front door only to have Barry force his way inside while waving a handgun. He allegedly demanded to see another person he thought was in the house. The victim able to escape to a bedroom where she locked the door and activated a panic alarm. That quick thinking may have saved her life. Barry searched the home before fleeing the scene. The victim not physically injured. Detectives identified Barry through investigative leads, picked him up yesterday. He's facing a slew of charges. Records show Barry was previously convicted in 2 separate violent felonies. He's currently being held at SCI on $166,000 cash bond. The race for Rehoboth Beach Commissioner heating up as a new challenger enters the ring with the focus on the city's finances. 9-year resident Jeffrey Good officially filed his paperwork to run for commissioner. Good says he's running to be, in his words, a voice for fiscal sanity. He points to a city budget that's gone from $19 million to over $50 million in just under a decade. He'll be facing off against incumbents Patrick Gossett and Mark Saunders, both seeking re-election. Meanwhile, current Commissioner Susan Stewart remains the only candidate, filing for vacated by Mayor Stan Mills, who's stepping down after 2 terms. Man from Salisbury has been ordered to serve 105 years in state prison for sex crimes from last year. Wacomico County Judge Matthew Marciallo sentenced Jacob Price after he pleaded guilty in April to sexual abuse of a child and rape. If Price ever gets out of prison, the registry list.
WGMD AccuWeather.
Plenty of sunshine this afternoon. Breezy and pleasant, 73 at the beach, 77 inland. A clear sky tonight. Breezy, low 60. Breezy, pleasant tomorrow. Times of clouds and sun, 68 at the beach, 72 inland. Mostly sunny and cool on Sunday. Good day to be outside, 66 at the beach to 74 inland. More on these and other stories, visit talkofdelmarva.com. I'm Jerry Lademan, and the Talk of Delmarva is...
Craving wings? Head to Wings to Go Long Neck, now under new ownership, where flavor meets freshness. Choose from 29 sauces and dry rubs. Enjoy traditional or boneless wings, always cooked to order. Try cheesesteaks and their popular soft-shell crabs. Conveniently located at 25938 Plaza Drive in Millsboro. Open daily at 11 a.m. Call 302-947-9444 or order on DoorDash. Wings to Go Long Neck, simply great wings since 1985.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Welcome back from the Meineke Car Care Done Right Studios, your News Talk America. This is Brigadier General Blaine Holt, your guest host, in for the great Jake Smith, who will be back with us on Friday next. Well, I'm certain if you've been with us, you're completely revved up after listening to Nick Cook, and his friend, Dr. Pippa Malmgren, is on with us this morning. A little bit about her. She has got the Dr. Pippa Substack. She is writing all the time. She's a tech entrepreneur like myself, but she's also a macroeconomist, and she's tracking everything that's happening in this sovereigntists versus globalists fifth generation war. And if you listen to the mainstream press, you're just going to get down. You're going to be sad. You're going to say, well, there's no energy. We're going to have a famine, and we're not going to win against Iran anyway. We're probably losing. It's probably all just propaganda, and we're not going to be okay with China. And so here comes World War III. It's too late for us. Save yourself. And my friend, Dr. Malmgren, has a very different view, and you could read her hug manifest on Substack, and you should. So welcome, and let's begin there. How are we doing in the Middle East?
Hi. Well, listen, thanks for the invitation to join you. So I think the first thing people need to understand is that there's a kind of Rubik's Cube strategy that's in play. And what I mean by that is the president and his team understand that you can't resolve any single one of the major foreign policy issues by itself as a standalone. So if you want to solve the highest priority issue, which is the war in Ukraine, then you had to begin a negotiating strategy with China, because only China can really put the serious leverage on Russia, for example. So to do that, you have to open a discussion about Taiwan, which has happened. To make it more likely that China would come to the table to negotiate over Taiwan and Ukraine, it was helpful that the U.S. went after Venezuela and Iran because they were the major oil suppliers to China. And so the implicit message to China has been, of course, you can buy all the oil you want, and the U.S. will even sell it to you from Alaska. You can have what's available out of Venezuela, but parentheses, not if you want to go to war with the United States. If you want to go to war with the United States, then the U.S. now has the, let's say, the leverage to turn off that supply. Well, then, as events unfolded in Iran, it was fascinating to see that it was the Iranian leadership themselves who started interfering with China's oil traffic, which was in tennis, you would say, or in a sports match, you would say that was an own goal. Like they started making a problem for their biggest sponsor, right? So for China, if they have a choice between saving their own economy and supporting the Iranians, they're going to go with their own economy first. Second, if the choice is between a deal on Taiwan and access to the U.S. market on more favorable terms or Iran, they're going to pick the first. So I think when you understand there's a much larger strategy in play here, and it is working, in my opinion, in each location. So there's a kind of implicit acceptance of a sort of swap where the US is saying China and Russia got out of Cuba, Venezuela, support of the cartels in Latin America, and the US finds a way to do a deal on Taiwan, which doesn't mean giving away Taiwan, just to be crystal clear. It means Japan plays a bigger role. They become the tripwire, not the United States. And China needs to become more like Taiwan. The addition of what's happened in Iran makes even the Chinese say we cannot be depending on for our whole economy on an oil supply coming from a partner that will turn on us in a bad moment. So they basically, the Revolutionary Guard has lost their main sponsor this way.
So you've done an excellent job laying the foundation for all of the different nodes that are around the world. And I love this metaphor. President Trump's really working a Rubik's Cube that's going to get after all these things. But every Rubik's Cube has its center point. And at the center point of the Rubik's Cube, what I would argue, and you can argue it, throw a rock at me, that's fine. But I would say that in every single case, all roads lead to London. All roads lead to the British Empire, the financialists, the City of London Banking Consortium. And their tentacles are everywhere, and they're not even really physically based in London anymore. This is the high table. These are the folks who, since the fall of Rome, have decided, no, we're going to just incarnate ourselves in different facets. We become the Venetians, and we become the Dutch. 1688 rolls around, 9 Years' War. Now we take over England, and we displace King James, and now William will run the table. And then there's this upstart bunch of colonists who say we're not going to take it anymore. And we go on and through our own history, finally, the City of London figures out the right note to pitch to control the United States, and that's through intelligence services, deep state operations, and Woodrow Wilson, Royal Institute of International Affairs, socialism. Now let's blast forward to today. When you see something that doesn't make quite a lot of sense, what you got to do is you got to dig a little deeper. So then when I look at why Iran would want to foil China and its customer there, I don't look at Iran. I look at the playbook that they're being told. Because if we're going to look at the Straits of Hormuz being shut down today, it's not our blockade, and it's certainly not what's left of the IRGC, but it's Lloyd's of London threatening any shipping company anywhere that if you play ball with Donald Trump, and if you take an escort and you take that U.S. insurance, we won't work with you ever again. That's 337 years of monopoly that's being busted up. What do you think of that?
So I totally get the argument, and I lived in the UK for literally most of my adult life.
You even went to the London School of
Economics. I went to the London School of Economics. I did. Although in those days, you had Maggie Thatcher as chief economist, chief economic advisor on the faculty. So it wasn't left wing, it was the whole spectrum. But the reason I personally prefer a different way of framing it, but it is, you've identified a problem. But I think the larger issue is to do with modern technology is disintermediating all the middlemen in every aspect of the economy. So what you're describing is a community that has built cash flows around contracts and structures that were very dependable for a very, very long time. And Trump is disrupting that. And technology is disrupting that, not just the president, but technology itself. So, the president's view is he wants to pull the future forward faster. He's trying to get the world economy to jump. I'll give you just a couple of specific examples. I've been writing a lot about moving from dependence on molecules to dependence on atoms. Right. So when we look at a map of the Strait of Hormuz, we're looking at a 2D map, and we see there are these molecules of oil and gas and petroleum byproducts that are blocked, as you say, by the Iranians, not by the US, and by Lloyd's of London removing the insurance. Okay, so then the whole world economy glitches. The US is saying, we can supply all of those molecules, but we don't even want to be in a world that relies on those molecules anymore. We want to shift to a world that relies on small modular reactors, We want to get to nuclear fusion. We're going to get to free energy or nearly free energy. And so this particular glitch can be handled by the US supply. We could just shift the supply chain, but it's also a way of funding and financing the shift into new forms of energy that then we're not looking at that 2D map anymore. We're beginning to look at what I call a 3D map that then extends out into the stars, where we begin to pull energy from space-based solar power, where we capture the power of a star in a box, which is what these new small modular reactors are about. So in a way, this is a complete reconfiguration of the axis on which the world economy turns. So, of course, anybody back on the 2D map where all their power and control came from, I control this particular strait, is going to be upset, not only that they're losing control over that location, but now we're in a completely different world where they can't catch up very fast. So that would be just one way of describing it. But I think also, can I say one more thing on this, which is the East India Company has been the model, the way that bright people, when they get together to create value and wealth, they incorporate based on that model that was the foundation of colonialism and the British Empire. But today we have all these new technologies, including smart contracts and increasingly digital rails. So do you need to create a company? Maybe not. Maybe a smart contract starts to replace it. And that's where tokenization comes in, where the White House is really pushing for the economy to move in this direction, because you can fund a wider array of businesses this way than the traditional East India Company route, which in the end, how many companies get to an IPO? Not so many. Once you shift from the old model to the new one, again, all the old players are out of the game. So that's why they're upset.
So when we get back from a very quick break, I promise, I'm guessing that we're just a big hermit crab and we're going to shed a shell and we're going to go look for a bigger shell to live in, because all these technologies are going to let us do that. And then I want to kind of examine a little bit more about the Middle East, because there's a little bit of an autopsy that you've done recently with how that uranium got to Iran. We'll talk about it here when we get back on Your News Talk America.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Bright sunshine expected this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 77. West winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Clear skies tonight, lows dip down to about 61. Mainly sunny skies tomorrow, high of 73. High temperatures reach up to 72 Sunday under sunny skies. 77 Monday, slight chance for showers. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center, inland. Currently, it's 72 degrees.
Celebrating over 40 years. 92.7 and 98.5. The Talk of Delmarva. Mike Bradley mornings on WGMD.
11 a.m. Wellness Minute is locally brought to you by PAM Health Rehabilitation Hospitals. When a stroke strikes, every second counts, not just for survival, but for recovery. And what happens in the days that follow? That's where acute rehabilitation comes in. Unlike other levels of care, acute rehab offers intensive, personalized therapy starting just days after a stroke, when your brain is most ready to heal, offering physical therapists to rebuild strength, occupational therapists restoring independence, speech therapists to connect words and thoughts, and a nationally recognized stroke-certified program. Studies show that stroke survivors in acute rehab recover faster, regain more function, and are likely to return home. So don't wait. Ask your doctor about acute rehabilitation at PAM Rehab, because the sooner you start, the stronger your comeback. For more, visit PAMHealth.com or call 302-672-5800.
Have you looked at your trees lately? Really looked at them? Complete Tree Care has a 76-foot lawn-friendly lift and specializes removing hazardous trees, dead wood, or removing that limb that has been worrying you. Best of all, our estimates are free. That's right, free. Have our trained sales specialists give you a written proposal. So make sure you visit us on the web at CompleteTreeCare.us. Call Complete Tree Care 302-947-2273, 302-947-2273.
Tune in this Monday afternoon after the 4:30 news as WGMD's featured guest will be Jim Fritz of All American Mortgage, specializing in reverse mortgages and keeping you up to speed with Delmarva's ever-changing housing market this Monday afternoon after the 4:30 news.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and not necessarily the staff, management, ownership, advertisers, or sponsors of WGMD.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Isn't it weird that an American president would throw $1.8 billion of cash into a couple of jets and send them to a country with a regime that is hell-bent not only on building a nuclear weapon if they could build it, but that their self-professed destiny is to bring about the 12th Imam, Armageddon, and all these other wonderful things that we really don't like to think about. Why would a president do that, or why would we sign some sort of stupid piece of paper that says, well, don't develop nuclear weapons today, but maybe in 20 years you can? One of the things that struck me on a podcast that you were on, Dr. Malmgren, was the fact that when they got that uranium, they may not have made it themselves. And then the other part is, there could have been some very interesting arrangements with the Obama administration that we don't know about. And President Trump is doing his level best to preserve basically a crime scene as we get about finalizing the Iran problem. So if you could kind of recreate your thoughts on that a little bit, I think it would be very helpful.
Sure. Well, again, having, worked for a president, it's always important to understand the motivations of who's in charge, right? So I do think that this term crime scene is a good one in this context because the president, in effect, is looking for receipts in almost all the locations where there are foreign policy issues right now. So we know in Venezuela, for example, the part of the deal is President Maduro and his head of his equivalent of the CIA, who defected some weeks before Maduro was extracted, are handing over the names of all of the Americans that they were collaborating with, paying, working with on the Smartmatic voting machine systems, et cetera. Now the same is happening in Cuba. The same issue is in play in Iran because the president's view is that it wasn't just that the JCPOA deal between the Obama administration and Iran was about sending the cash. Was it also about reaching agreements about supporting terrorists? And we know for sure now there's been a bit of an autopsy done on the monies that were made available to terrorist groups through USAID and different American payment mechanisms. And everybody's like, wait, why is the United States paying the Taliban $40 million a week? Like, how is that even possible when they're supposed to be the bad guys? And the same with other terror groups, which opens the door to the possibility that there was some more profound deal struck. Remember, too, that Iran, because it's outside the global financial system, would also be a place where you could keep data on servers that would be considered impossible for the U.S. authorities to reach. So part of what the administration is trying to do is get the receipts, right? So it's not just about retrieving the uranium so they don't have a nuclear program. It's also about asking the questions. Now, how did you come into possession of this caliber and quality of uranium? What was the original source? Or what were the deals that were around the cash payments in addition to what we know about? What else? Right. So this is what he's after.
So this leads us to a guy who I think is the lead general in this whole campaign, and it's not Admiral Cooper from CENTCOM. No slam on Admiral Cooper. He's a fine officer. He's doing an incredible job. The United States military is performing perfectly. But one of the most delicate and hard operations to handle here is where Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has to come into this, because in terms of gathering those receipts, you got to find out where the money was going and where it was coming from. What we can see that he has done is he has either sanctioned or shut down or made not possible their operations. 7 banks, 7 banks, from UAE to London to Hong Kong, and beyond. One MBER out of Switzerland, I think they're going to be completely shutting down now, and the reason is because this is what's funded this regime. This is where the money has come from. But when you dry up the money, now you create desperate people in Iran, people you thought were on your side, and they're not on your side anymore. And talk a little bit about, this is where the war is, and this is why you see strange behaviors. I mean, just take one element of it. Europe, case in point on Europe. Europe should be down there with its own ships. You would argue that the vital interest of the Straits of Hormuz, fertilizer and energy, is all about Europe. Well, why aren't they down there helping? Wait, no, it's worse than that. They're not letting us use our bases. They're not, that Lloyd's of London is trying to shut down the Straits and continues to this day. So then why would these professed allies that we pay the bills for all these years come onto the battlefield to fight a guy like Bessent and Trump?
Yeah, so I agree with your analogy that Bessent is a general in these affairs. It was very important, very interesting that he said that he found ways to cut off the cash flows to the Iranian leadership in the many months leading up to the military action, so that their paychecks stopped. And that meant they would be destabilized, right? We can't pay the bills. And that's a clever strategy, to start with a financial destabilization and then move to a military conflict environment. It's also true that it's about disassociating supporters, and it included some Chinese institutions as well. And notice that the Chinese have not complained about
They're on the
that,
sidelines.
because they actually are aligned with the United States now on the matter of securing the free flow of oil from the Strait. And as is, by the way, everybody else in the region now. Again, the irony is the actions taken by the IRGC and the Iranian leadership to basically lob missiles at all their neighbors and hit extremely valuable critical infrastructure, including an atomic power station in the UAE, is completely aligned everybody in the Middle East. I've recently spent some time with the leadership in some of these countries, even Lebanon. They're all like, this is not acceptable. We are with Trump. So there's no daylight between any of them now. And so that's completely changed the landscape of the Middle East. But I would go back to your key point about where the Europeans, and say, again, we're in a Rubik's Cube. They know that the center of this Rubik's Cube really does rest on Ukraine. And my theory, I'll just try this on you, but my theory is the fundamental issue is that Ukraine was the most indebted nation almost in the world before the war broke out. And who did they owe the money to? France, Germany, UK, Italy. So if there's a peace deal in Ukraine, they will not get paid back. Not only that, but all the Russian money that's been confiscated will have to be returned. And my guess, this will crystallize a major financial loss and a catastrophe for the EU. And since they don't want to face that loss, they don't want to crystallize that loss, they would prefer the war continues, even with the faintest hope that they might win.
True.
So that's why they're opposing the president's actions to use all these forces to bring Ukraine to an end.
It's going to happen anyway. You know, a fun fact for you on Ukraine, if you think there's no corruption, in Monaco, the shipyards that build all the super yachts, they are actually 4 years backed up in production lines to build 300-meter super yachts or 100-meter super yachts, and all the customers are Ukrainian.
Yeah.
So in just a few minutes, we'll be right back with Dr. Malmgren, who we are covering the whole world. But what she's also going to bring us is, before you get too upset about this stuff, we're actually winning. In fact, we may have already won, and so we'll talk about that when we return. Your News Talk America.
Here is the marine forecast from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center. Sunny today with highs getting into the mid-70s. And on the water, winds turn to the south, 10 to 15 knots by afternoon, seas 2 to 3 feet. The current water temperature is 66 degrees. At Cambridge, low tide 10:31 a.m., high tide 3:37 p.m., low tide 9:53 p.m. And at Rehoboth Beach, high tide 7:03 a.m., low tide 12:57 p.m., high tide 7:27 p.m.
The Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report here on 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD. News on the hour on WGMD.
This WGMD Fox Business Update is brought to you by Sussex Environmental Consultants. For a healthy home, call 302-947-1810.
I'm Susan Lee, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Stocks have been gaining on the last trading day of the month. We could have record closes again for the NASDAQ and S&P. Dell shares are sharply higher, up more than 30% today. It's seeing robust demand for its NVIDIA-powered artificial intelligence servers. Dell's seeing the benefit of data center investments from Alphabet's Google and Amazon, and it has a new $9.7 billion contract with the U.S. military. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon believes his bank's trading and investment banking business could top expectations this quarter. He tells FBN's Maria Bartiromo that he sees the economy mostly holding up, growing at 2%, and unemployment is low, but he says inflation is ticking higher and lower income consumers are pulling back on saving. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Cosola. Invested in you.
Most investments today feel like second jobs. Real estate, you're a landlord. Stocks, you're a day trader. Crypto, you're a full-time researcher. You've got a life to live. Your investments should help you live it. That's why more Americans are choosing gold. Noble Gold has helped thousands protect their future with real physical gold. Visit NobleGoldInvestments.com to get your free wealth protection kit. That's NobleGoldInvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
And it's your News Talk America on the Meineke Car Care Done Right studio with Brigadier General Blaine Holt, guest host in for Jake Smith on this historic Friday. Can I pick the perfect guest for the perfect moment or not? I've got Dr. Pippa Malmgren, and we're kind of taking a trip around the world at a time when President Trump just released minutes ago that he may have a very big announcement on some sort of agreement in Iran. And we were just talking off the air about this, that you know, the two guys left standing, the foreign minister and the speaker of parliament, they may form the new leadership of an Iran under this new model where President Trump takes a bad guy and flips him around into a good guy like he did with Delcy Rodriguez in Venezuela. And we may be on track here to the end game issue. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the global strategy the president has had from the start, which is not regime change, which is brutal, expensive, hard to enforce, but instead offer a deal that's just so enticing that the bad guys say it's not worth continuing to be a bad guy, and they become a good guy. And wait, this is exactly how, for example, in the Troubles, as they called it in Northern Ireland, ended too. When it just becomes a better deal to be on the right side than the wrong side. At some point, you have to have a deal where it pays better not to be the terrorist.
No, that's exactly right. So, but this is going to move if we get this today, this is going to move the pucks around the geopolitical board fiercely. First off, big sad face for all the bankers who were betting long on oil. You may find that you want to cover those positions really quickly if you're in the derivatives market. And then the second thing is, in the aftermath of something like this, I think what I've watched President Trump do is it just like the Venezuela piece. He stops and pauses and watches to see how the board has changed. Like any chess player, a big move happened, a queen got taken, the bishop's gone, and you want to kind of study, okay, now how's everything? I think that's probably what happens next. But in the case of Ukraine, with a Europe that has not followed President Trump's leadership to get this done, in the case of Ukraine, where we see nothing but seas and rivers of receipts that lead to the corruption and the scandal, and a formerly confident Ursula von der Leyen and Kaja Kallas who said, well, we're just going to divide up Russia, we'll recollateralize our broken fiat system with 75 trillion in natural resources. It doesn't really quite look like that's going to be playing out that way. And so as President Trump surveys the board for the rest of the summer, wouldn't you be very nervous if you're sitting in these institutions like NATO headquarters, the EU, Keir Starmer, the UK, you kind of bet the farm on this stuff going. And now if you watch the Straits and the Middle East get cleaned up, where do you go next?
So there are two big problems that remain needing to be solved in the Rubik's Cube globally. One is North Korea, and one is Ukraine. It's clear to me that there's already a deal in motion on North Korea because you can see the Chinese are building physical infrastructure over the top,
Right.
which indicates that they're intending to effectively absorb it into China and also then build the connectivity into Eastern Russia, where the president basically said, listen, China should go into northern Russia, Siberia, because they've never had any investment. Most Americans don't know where it is, so nobody's going to complain about it. And Russia has to say, this is great. Finally, someone's investing for infrastructure in our east. So that, I think, is coming. It will get resolved. But nonetheless, it's a bigger problem than Iran because they do have nuclear missiles with payload delivery over long distances.
Right.
So not to be underestimated. It's kind of the case of the dog that isn't barking. You have to pay attention to that one. But Ukraine is the same in that it's the most important piece of this puzzle. It was the point of all these other steps was to create a situation where it forces both Zelensky and Putin to the table. And I think that is now going to happen for sure. Already we have seen both sides say, yes, we're getting closer to that end game. Then the question is, what happens to Western Europe once a deal is struck? And the answer is they're not going to like it, but also their public is going to say, why are we opposing peace deals that are breaking out everywhere? Why are we in favor of war when peace is clearly unfolding?
Well, they've deindustrialized Europe. They've worshipped at the at the altar of climate change. They have said net zero is our mantra, even through this war. There is, Germany took out all of its nuclear power plants. You have Europeans now who are already in advance of the end of this war asking questions. What was this for? Why did we do this? You've got Ursula von der Leyen raiding their pension accounts, no less, to shore up what she wants to be a $90 billion loan. You see, we've warned Europe about this twice in the last year, where they have rolled up civil rights. They prefer invaders, military-age men, who have come in, established rape gangs in France, in the UK, in Ireland. So what we see is cultural evisceration. And I think when you look at the world stage and you look at President Trump with this Rubik's Cube paradigm that you're talking about, this way of doing it, the smoke clears. Everybody's cheering on North Korea's entry back into the world. They're reindustrializing. Peace deals and economic prosperity are breaking out all over the place. Nick Cook's 0 Point Energy is coming into the fray. And then you've got a bunch of Europeans who are looking there, holding the bag, holding the debt card, holding all of it, saying, what just happened to us? I don't think that ends well. In fact, I think it ends violently.
Well, I'm not sure it has to end violently. I mean,
I don't think it has to. It just has the potential to.
It does have the potential. Look at what we're seeing, this ground swell of public resistance to the current stance in people going to the streets in Britain, in France. I think the public are attempting to move in the direction that Trump has established, which of course in Europe it's very awkward because everyone is supposed to hate Trump. That's what they've been taught by their media. They're like, he's the enemy. And they're like, wait, but some of this is actually good. So I think we're going to see a change in who the public want to vote for in Western Europe. And I think Trump saw that too. And he expects that part of a victory with a deal with Iran and bringing Iran back in the world economy, which, by the way, is going to make the Middle East boom. I mean, already everybody in the Middle East is preparing to party galore and build businesses. Iran is the most entrepreneurial country, you know, in that whole region.
It is.
So that's going to be a huge upside story. As these things happen, the Western Europeans are going to say, we need to vote for a different leadership. And I think that is in play.
Yeah, my friends in Lebanon, you talked about Lebanon earlier.
Yes.
They're chomping at the bit. They can feel it. You know, I talk to them all the time, and we can feel it. The change is coming. We think it's going to be a good one. We're not really happy about what's happening in the southern part of the country, but we think that might get. And this is why I think you and I talked about this last week. Was the president made a very big statement when he released that social media post on the Abraham Accords, which was, and adding Pakistan and Turkey, which would have been, you know, if I was on the National Security Council, I would have said, okay, we're in a war with Iran. Is it really time to start thinking even bigger? But I think this is the move to checkmate. And now that we see Iran is starting to wrap up, I actually think he's moving to checkmate in the Middle East. And again, I think when we, you know, at least in my world, all roads leading back to London, I think now they're looking at old ways of doing things where they were very comfortable in a fight for roots and resources. Well, if that fight's going away, how do you answer the Irish who are now really, really ticked off that you have appropriated their culture, taken their farms, and allowed absolutely people from everywhere to have what they have?
This is an extraordinary moment in history, and you're going to see the Europeans going through a big philosophical introspection. Like, this is inevitable from these events. But the bottom line is, if the US and China normalize the relationship, which is clearly happening, that was the whole point of the visit to the Temple of Heaven and Earth. And I keep pointing out to people that we have to understand the immense symbolic significance. Normally, you would be doing a signing agreement with pens and contracts, but the Chinese are not presenting it that way. They're saying this is bigger than that, because only emperors are allowed to go to the Temple of Heaven in order to restore the cosmic order, right, and mediate.
On high as well.
Right. So this is a recognition that the only way forward between the US and China is to find the common ground. Now, the same is happening with Russia. The same is happening with Iran. The same is happening with Venezuela. And right now, the Cubans are basically in a position where they've got no oil, no gas, no diesel, no lights on. And the head of the CIA had to fly in there himself to stand there saying, we'll give you guys $100 million, but you have to like change your ways.
Over.
But it's over, right? Like, and what choice do they have? So as the world basically joins the United States effectively, this is an unbelievable win for the United States across the whole chessboard.
But
so,
didn't he tell us this? And I think when he wrote the national security strategy, which I have been a part of national security strategy staffing actions for many years. This is where staff officers go to die. It's very clearly written that way. I could see in my experience with those things, all of my words in the national security strategies I was a part of, you could see the words I used is, was, there, what. Those words got to stay. All the rest of them changed. But in this national security strategy, it came through loud and clear to me. It's going to be a sphere of influence world. It's an arc world. It's not BRICS. It's not these other Bretton Woods relics. It's America, Russia, China as the arbiters of these spheres of influence. We won't be darling allies in each other's arms. We won't profess our love for each other. What we will do is work out and sort our problems the best we can. And I think that the old world, the Bretton Woods world, not really set up for that, and probably resisting that to the max extent that they possibly can. But it's a fait accompli. I think it's to what you were telling me before is, oh, we're already there. We're just in the cleanup phases of what this looks like. But yes, we told everybody this is what we were going to do. Now, before we go to break, because I always like to tease people to come right back, but they will anyway because of you, not because of me. And that will be the deal to hold NATO. Does NATO completely go away? Now, as a former deputy representative to NATO, maybe I'm just off because of biases and I work there. I don't think NATO does go away, but I think if they want to keep NATO, they're going to be giving up so much to hold that institution, because, you know, we're going to wrap up the Middle East now. They didn't play ball, and it's going to be like, oh, you want NATO? Well, there's a new price tag associated with that. So when we get back, we'll be finishing up, unfortunately, what's been a lightning fast hour with Dr. Malmgren as we take a trip around the world and back some. Be right back.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Clear skies this afternoon. Daytime highs approaching 79. Westerly winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Clear skies again tonight. Lows level off around 61. Daytime highs approaching 73. Tomorrow, mainly clear. Ample sunshine expected Sunday with a high of 72. 77, slight chance of rain showers Monday. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center along the coast. Right now, it's 69 degrees.
The best mix of news, talk, and sports. 92.7 and 98.5. The Talk of Delmarva. Jake Smith, mid-mornings on WGMD.
Full and lively garden creates a welcoming home full of family, friends, love, and laughter. Let the entire family here at Sandy Hill Greenhouses bring your garden to life. Our locally grown makes for happier, healthier plants that are not only vibrant in color, but will last all season long.
Locally grown also means that we're able to keep our costs low and our inventory high.
Drive a little further and go home with a lot more. Visit us on Sand Hill Road in Georgetown.
Or call 302-856-2412.
Hey, WGMD listeners, it's me, Rob Carson. I'm going to be live on location Saturday, May 30th from 10 in the morning until noon at Chagrin Home Comfort Products. Come out and say hello as we celebrate Chagrin's huge open house event. Save on everything for outdoor living, grills, pizza ovens, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces, and much more. If you're ready to upgrade your backyard or shop for the perfect Father's Day gift, this is the place to be. Stop by the Midway Shopping Center in Rehoboth this Saturday, 10 to noon, with me, Rob Carson, and Chagrin Home Comfort Products.
Hi, I'm Tim, and I'm a principal with Giuliani Associates. A building can look impressive, but if it doesn't work, it costs you every day. Customer flow, staff efficiency, operational performance. We design commercial facilities that are built to work and built to grow with your business. As Delmarva expands, your building should support what's next. Giuliani Associates. Architecture is an investment. Design a better Delmarva.com. Design a better Delmarva.com.
Slow down and savor your Sunday on Delmarva. Join me, Katie Stone, for Delmarva Live Sunday. A lighter look at what's happening on the peninsula. Local events, interesting people, and stories that make Delmarva home. Whether you're starting your morning or easing into the day, it's the perfect soundtrack for your Sunday. Delmarva Live Sunday with Katie Stone. Heard Sundays from 9 until noon.
Hey, Colonel, General.
And wherever it was threatened, the Talk of Delmarva presents Salute the Troops. Salute the Troops remembers with honor United States Army Specialist Henry Mitch Mayfield Jr., who died on January 5th, 2020, as the result of an attack by Al-Shabaab militants on Manda Bay Airfield in Kenya. He was assigned to 1st Battalion, 58th Aviation Regiment, 164th Theater Airfield Operations Group out of Fort Rucker, Alabama. Henry Mitch Mayfield Jr. died while supporting Operation Optimal Shield. Mission focused on targeting
General, you'll have 9 minutes coming back.
That's quite a rebate.
Yes, sir. That's what you get for giving me trouble.
Aircraft as well. Mayfield was a native of the Chicago suburb of Hazel Crest. He enlisted in the Army in August of 2017. His mother, Carmenetta, said that she last spoke with her son during the 2020 New Year's holiday. We discussed him not having to go to Somalia, and he told me everything was good and safe at his base. His mother told NBC5 in Chicago he told me everything would be okay. His mother indicated those were his last words to her. Salute the Troops honors the ultimate sacrifice in Somalia of United States Army Specialist Henry Mitch Mayfield Jr. If not for Mayfield's ultimate sacrifice, fighting the war on terror, this nation could not. This nation would never have remained free. May our grateful nation never forget the name, Henry Mitch Mayfield Jr. For Salute the Troops, I'm Jake Smith.
Where veterans, if you need information, the Talk of Delmarva has what you need, from the Veterans Crisis Line to housing help to medical help. Through the Delaware Veterans Coalition, you'll find information affecting all generations of Delaware's veterans. Delaware Veterans Affairs has help for veterans, especially those dealing with veterans benefits. You'll find assistance and support services in one location. Delaware Veterans Information at the Community Outreach under the Extras tab at thetalkofdelmarva.com.
Because so many things are possible.
Lost my company.
Here we go. Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
And we're back. Your News Talk America in the Meineke Car Care Done Right Studios with your guest host, Brigadier General Blaine Holt. You can find me on X at @the_irascible, also at Danger Thinking, and please listen to my podcast, Dangerous Intellectuals. And hey, guess what? The next guest on Dangerous Intellectuals is my guest right now, Dr. Pippa Malmgren. And I want to set the stage here because, you know, since 2020, I think most Americans have been freaked out, terrified. The next crisis is coming down the loop. Just ask hantavirus, Ebola, all this financial crap. Now we got street corner cameras, and you know, Americans are pretty rattled. They have good reason to be. But we're living in historic times. These are great days to be alive, to see it all happening. And I think what you've identified this hour is a tremendous shift is underway as this Rubik's Cube gets put into place, and as new technologies like Nick Cook was telling us about are rising. We're about to wake up in a whole new world, and we may be looking at a period of a little more turbulence through the summer, to be sure, because we got to make sure the bad guys understand there's a whole new deal going down. But after that, we're probably in what President Trump was characterizing as a golden age, and maybe it wasn't a bunch of campaign rhetoric. What do you think?
I say I agree. We are absolutely coming into an era of extraordinary abundance. New technologies that are making it possible for the price of energy to collapse. Things like small modular reactors. I think we're very close to nuclear fusion, but even without that, things like space-based solar power, all these new technologies that are now well within reach, that are totally transformative. In fact, I would argue the economy is growing in 4 cardinal directions now, all of which are unlimited. Up, which is into space, where you're talking about unlimited energy, unlimited resources, unlimited internet connectivity. Down into atomic, subatomic, quantum, nano levels of reality. And then out into the borderless places, which are AI and exascale computing networks, and in, which is human longevity, where extraordinary advances are happening. So where people are locked in fear, actually, we are looking at an infinite set of possibilities for growth and abundance that is unfolding before our eyes.
So what you just told me is we got to change everything. We got to change a mindset. And this gets down to what I think about when we're educating our children. We're educating how they think about things. They're going to be we're all going to need big educations in science, quantum physics, and that to understand exactly why we're operating in the world we're operating in right now. But one concept that I didn't think we'd have time for, but I think we're going to make time for it, is there's hardware, there's software, there's roots, there's resources, there's finite resources, so we're told. But there's also a thing that you call heartware. So
Yeah.
tell me about hardware and how you define that and why this new world is going to demand that your hardware is on step.
Yeah, because when you massively upgrade your hardware and your software, so your capacity to either destroy the world many times over or construct an incredible abundant future is so vast that you have to have some way of knowing which way to go. And that's hardware. That's the human operating system. What do we need to protect humans? Because it's the human intelligence that got us to this place. So I believe that if we upgrade our hardware along with hardware and software, we can enter an abundant future, which is totally different than the past. Small little example real quick, where you can have a 3D printed house with 3 bedrooms that is beautiful, that is not just getting energy for free, but you're selling power back to the grid. So now the house is starting to pay the mortgage for you. So suddenly, do you have to work so hard? Maybe not. And then can we devote our time to other more interesting problems than simply scrambling to make a living? All of that is within reach now.
So you think we're moving from a humanity that was live to work, and now it's going to go to a place called work to live, and to caveat that, work on what interests you, work on what. And we had, and this is so cool, I wish you could have met him, and I think you will meet him one day, in fact, because we're all merging together on this. Nick Smoot was one of our guests at the very front part of the week, and he is with me here in northern Idaho. He is building on this build concept of new cities, new ways of thinking and envisioning things and creating things in the world. His educational concept for our young ones are, don't give them a subject to study, give them a project of curiosity. Let them come to the curiosity, and then on their way to the destination of that project, they'll pick up those skills along the way that they need to fester and scratch that itch of what that burning curiosity is. And those things can't be possible unless we start that hardware piece that you're talking about. I think that's amazing, and that's what we should all be gravitating towards. And that's why I think, we just gotta batten down the hatches and get through these next few very turbulent changes, because those guys who've been the winners and the families who have been the winners all these decades and centuries, they got to adapt to we the people, not the other way around.
Yeah, here's the bottom line. We need to really get ready for a peace dividend. Just like when the Berlin Wall fell, we got a massive increase in the world economy's productivity and wealth creation. I think that we're on the brink of that again. And the thing is, everybody's already figured out the downside. You might as well spend a little time thinking about what's the possibility that maybe it works. So that's one.
In my time go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And the second one is this is about activating imagination. And instead of being afraid of AI and robotics, consider them ways that we're augmenting our capacity to create. Yeah. And so how do we harness these armies of capability to build things that were never possible before?
I think that's so important. I'm building a technology company, Xeriant, Xeriant, and that's like the zenith of the top of technology. But we have all these disciplines, from hypersonics to advanced building materials. And the one statement I gave them as our motto is, what we could do, ...
Oh, I love that.
Whatever that is.
I love that. That should be our strap line, no matter who you are right now. Imagine what we could do. And then go look and see that all these technological innovations are making the impossible possible.
So it sounds like a good time to build a business, to create, to think, but batten down the hatches. We got a little more turbulence before we're going to bring this big jet in for a landing. And really, honestly, I can't believe how fast, I do believe how fast this hour went. And like I've told everybody, I spent 30 years of my life learning to blow stuff up. Now we're going to spend 30 years learning to create stuff. And I can't believe we're alive to see it all Pippa Malgrim, thank you for joining me on the upcoming
you.
Dangerous Intellectuals, but also here on Your News Talk America. Can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much. Great.
Are we clear?
92.7 WGMD Rehoboth Beach and 98.5 WUSX Seaford, the talk of Delmarva.